right, just like in class, these notes will serve you as a reminder and a refresher of how to divide polynomials by a binomial. I am going to show you the longer way, which will get you an accurate answer, but then I'll also show you a shortcut that works for almost every problem. There are a couple types of problems that the shortcut will not work for, and I will be sure to emphasize that with you. All these problems were worked out in class with you, but if you weren't in class or if you need to watch it and hear it again, this is what they will look like. All right, so the main thing to remember when you're going through the long process or the normal process is that you must factor the top. The top will always be factorable. And then from there, you'll cancel out what they have in common. And then what is left over is your final answer. All right, so when we look at the top, we have a trinomial. So from our factoring rules, we need two binomials with x and x in the front. A minus sign in the back means we need two different signs, so plus and minus. We have to multiply to get 8 and subtract to get 7. So the two numbers that do that are 8 and 1. Because the plus sign is in the front, the boss or the bigger number goes with a plus. So that'd be plus 8 and minus 1. So there's your factored top. Now you write that over top of x minus 1 because that's part of the problem. So the second step is that you cancel out the factors they have in common. Well, they both have x minus 1s. You will always have something that cancels, right? And then the leftover pieces, or piece in this case, is x plus 8, and that is your answer. Right? So you're always going to have something that cancels, and that's your clue that you are doing it right, because if nothing cancels, then something didn't go right. That's the normal version, the way you solve it by factor, not solving, but the way you factor it, cancel out to get your answer. Okay, there's no solving because there's no equal sign. But if you want to go for a shortcut, here's what the shortcut looks like. And I've said this in class, those of you who want to try it again because you weren't sure if you got it, this is what you'll be thinking. You take the bottom, or what you're dividing by, which is this x minus 1, and then you know you're multiplying x minus 1 times something, and that something has to produce x squared plus 7x minus 8. So you ask yourself some questions. You ask yourself, what do I multiply x by to get x squared? Well, by now you should know that x times x gives you x squared. So that's the first term. Then you go to negative 1 and you ask yourself, what can I multiply negative 1 by to get to negative 8? Well, negative 1 times positive 8 gets me negative 8. And that binomial that you just created right there, that's your answer. So the answer was still x plus 8. But you didn't have to factor it to get it. You could do the shortcut way and get the answer. So I will use the shortcut most often through these problems, right? But I will remind you that you can factor them and still get the same answer. Okay, because the shortcut does work and it is nice to save you time. All right, so let's take the shortcut and try number 1. If you have x minus 7, and you know you're going to be multiplying it times something, you have to get x squared minus 10x plus 21. Okay, so again, the goal is, how do I get from x to x squared? Well, you need an x, because x times x makes x squared. And then how do I get from negative 7 to positive 21? Well, a negative times a negative makes the positive, and 7 times 3 makes the positive 21. So the answer to this one is x minus 3. If you factored it, you would end up with the exact same answer. So for number 2, I'll do by factoring, just to give you variety and to show you the same method, but done twice, 2 different ways. So if I factor the top, I'm going to have m and m. I have a minus sign in the back, which means plus and minus. I have to multiply to get 45 and subtract to get 4. So 9 times 5 will be the two numbers. The boss is going to go with the negative sign. So 9 is with the negative, 5 with the plus. Okay, so there's my two factors. On the bottom, I have m minus 9. So you quickly can see who's going to cancel. So those m minus 9s are the two pieces that cancel. What's left over, the m plus 5, that's my answer. Okay, so it works no matter whether you do the shortcut version or whether you do the factoring version. You're going to get the same answer. Now for number 3, you should recognize that if you have a binomial with a minus sign and perfect squares, that's difference of squares. Okay, so from factoring perspective, okay, you would have y and y, a plus and a minus, and 25 is made from 5 and 5. And then on the bottom you have y plus 5. And to cancel out your factors, y plus 5s cancel, so you're left with y minus 5. Okay, so just depending on what type of factoring problem it is, sometimes the shortcut is just as quick as factoring. And then depending on if you're doing slip and slide and those other ones, the shortcut's a lot faster. Now for numbers 4 and number 6, you cannot do the shortcut. And the reason you cannot do the shortcut is because there's a GCF in this problem. If your math problem has a GCF involved, the shortcut version does not work. So you have to factor out the GCF. So if you look at the top, 2x squared plus 16x, they both have x's, so you know you need an x, and then 2 goes into 2 and 16. So that's our greatest common factor. When you take out 2x, it leaves you with x plus 16 divided by 2 is 8, and you already took the x. And now you have x plus 8 on the bottom. So you're going to see that the x plus 8's cancel out, and your final answer is just the term 2x. You cannot get that if you do the shortcut. Okay, so just be super careful with those GCF problems. Okay, all other problems, the shortcut works though. So let's try the shortcut on number 5. Number 5, if you were to factor, you would have to do the slip and slide method for the entire top, which is a lot of work just to get the 2 factors for the top to keep going. You can do the shortcut and be done with the problem very quickly. So the shortcut, remember, says take the bottom binomial, 2x minus 3, and multiply it times something to get 2x squared plus 5x minus 12. Okay, so we're going to take the 2x and ask ourselves 2x times what gives us 2x squared? Well, 2x times x is going to give us 2x squared. Then you go to the negative 3. Negative 3 times what gives us negative 12? Well, negative times a positive is a negative, and 3 times 4 gives us negative 12. So the answer to this problem is x plus 4. A lot less work to get the right answer than if you had to factor the top and then cancel it out, but it would still work if that was what you needed. Number 6 is another one of those GCF problems, so the shortcut does not work. You have to factor the top. So you have to take that GCF out. 10 and 15 both have the common factor of 5, so that's our GCF. When we take that out, we end up with 2x minus 3, and then 2x minus 3 is on the bottom. So you can tell that our factors that are going to cancel are the 2x minus 3. The answer to this problem is just 5, because that's all that's left after you cancel out. All right, when you go to number 7, that's a difference of squares at the top. So the difference of squares at the top, I'll show you the shortcut one through this one since I haven't done difference of squares by shortcut. If you take 4x plus 1 and you ask yourself what can you multiply by to get 16x squared minus 1, you don't have to worry about a middle because all you've got is a front and a back. To go from 4x to 16x squared, you need another 4x. 4x times 4x is 16x squared. To go from positive 1 to negative 1, you have to multiply a positive times a negative, and 1 times 1 is 1. So the answer to this one is 4x minus 1. So you can go either way with a shortcut on this one. Number 8 is another one of those slip and slide on the top to get your answer, or you can do the shortcut. Right? So I like the shortcut on these ones because it does save you a lot of time. If you take y minus 3 times something, that's going to produce 3y squared minus 7y minus 6. Right? So taking a look at the first terms, we've got y times something makes 3y squared. Well, y has to multiply times 3y to give you 3y squared. Then you're going to have negative 3 times something gives us negative 6. Well, negative times positive makes negative, and 3 times 2 makes negative 6. Right? So once we get our answer, the answer is 3y plus 2. And you would have gotten that the same answer if you had done the slip slide method, but with a lot less work. So hopefully these notes remind you and help you about what to do with dividing. Dividing's not hard. You just have to do the factoring part right first. And remember that the GCF method does not work with the shortcut.